Welcome to Expanding Access, a podcast by Behavioral Health Tech, where we explore the cutting edge of mental health, substance use, and autism and IDD care. Each episode features insightful conversations with industry leaders who are driving real change through technology and innovation. Whether you're a provider, payer, or just passionate about expanding access to behavioral health care, you won't want to miss these stories. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. I'm Solome Tibabu, host of the Expanding Access podcast, where we cover all things, of course, expanding access to mental health, addiction, IDD care, and more in behavioral health. And I'm so excited to have Joe and Liam with us today. Such an incredible story and partnership with you two. Why don't we get started with Joe and then Liam first? If you could do just a brief introduction, name, title, role, please.
Great. I'm Joe Holtschlag, CEO of Ascellus Behavioral Health.
Hey, great to see you, Salome. And I'm Liam Donohue of 406 Ventures, based here in Boston.
Wonderful. Thank you both for joining us. So, Joe, if I can start with you, tell us a little bit about what was your journey into the workers' comp space and how did Ascellus come to be?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I've spent the first 25 years or so of my career in health tech. I started at the Joslin Diabetes Center in the basement, implementing electronic medical records before it was cool to do so. Then a little time in government and the beginning of some of the early health tech adoption. And then spent about 15 years at Athena Health. Some listeners may know is a large revenue cycle and electronic medical records company. And I think the thing that I learned most through all of that is the really learning to solve an entire business problem. I think some of the most compelling, long-standing, interesting companies out there are really trying to throw their arms around a whole thing. And if you're going to do that, you really need to bring the best of technology and clinical delivery and people operations. And I think that's really how Liam and I got linked up. And started as an executive in residence with 406 in 2022, spent a little time at a great healthcare connectivity company called Redox. But Liam and I had been talking about this, really the place that this really interesting company, Ascellus, was in, ready for a new leadership team, but a really compelling mission. And so that's how I got here in early 23.
Amazing. And for our audience, maybe those who might be a little less familiar with workers' comp, how is that different from commercial or federal health insurance?
Yeah, so workers' comp I just find to be a super interesting area, is almost like sitting in a piece of living history. Workers' comp is one of the great original grand bargains between labor and capital in 1911. It was, if we labor, are willing to work in your mines or around your dangerous machines, if we get injured doing that, you'll take care of us. You'll nurse us back to health and you'll take care of our families while we don't have wages. Traditionally, this has covered a really specific type of physical injury that you can imagine starts in 2011, which is like being in the mines or falling off of a roof. These things that really happen at one very specific place and time. Like you can stop your watch exactly when that injury happened. The work has evolved and our understanding, I think, of injury has as well. I scooped ice cream in college. I know that you can get carpal tunnel at work. And even though I can't say which exact ice cream cone it was that did it or when, you couldn't see it when it happened, the injury was there nonetheless. Mental health is actually pretty similar.
My injury might have been breaking my waistband on my shorts.
There you go. Yeah.
At an ice cream store.
So mental health is the same way, except maybe without the expanding waistline. I think you can't see the injury, you can't know exactly often when it happened, but you can accrue mental health injury at work, and it can happen gradually or all at once. First responders experience and see really difficult things. 73% of workplace violence happens to healthcare workers. Hospitality workers are too often the victim of sexual assault, and other industries have their own wrinkle on what is it to have mental health injury at work. And so you have this really evolving landscape of this understanding of injury. The good part is that legislation has started to catch up with that. So 31 states now allow you to submit a standalone mental health claim, which is from a workplace injury. And 49 states allow the submission of a mental health claim alongside a physical injury. So not as primary, but alongside. And there's even more legislation pending. It tends to start with first responders and then logically expands from there. And it's really created an addressable market that didn't exist before.
Wow, that's pretty astounding legislation with that kind of new opportunity. Why do you think anyone else hasn't built a significant mental health network in workers' comp?
Yeah, it's taken us 12 years to get here. So I understand why it hasn't just immediately, they're not just rushing here. I think there's a couple of major pillars to why this is a challenge. I think first you need clinicians who understand and want to take workers' comp cases. And the main reason that most mental health providers won't take workers' comp is that the friction of coordination is just astoundingly high. So you have to manage a relationship with the clinician is there and the claims adjuster, the primary treating provider on the physical side, on the occupational health side, the nurse case manager, and of course, the injured worker. And we talk about these sides as injury or as plaintiff and defendant because all of that is then wrapped in this sort of veil of impending settlement that could happen there. And everything has to move in sync. One day's missing report for us results in an immediate financial and a direct cost to our customers because it's one more day that person is out of work, that they're accruing benefits. And so really the administrative and operational infrastructure that it takes to keep all of those things together so that they can happen quickly, so that clinicians can focus on care, and so that the claims team can focus on the patient is also really important. And then if you find the clinician, you actually have to do the care itself, which is not exactly the same as it is in the rest of behavioral health. One thing that is particularly interesting is that there's just a lot of additional legal obligations of the clinician around documenting care and how you progress through. So you have to do things like make impairment ratings and determine, is this person at the maximum medical improvement that they should be? Say when they can go back to work and whether care is continuing while they're at work or not, and do a lot around, is this actually a workers' comp injury at all? Is there an industrial cause of the injury? So you can't just take, with all due respect to lots of family and divorce therapists and marriage therapists out there, you can't just take someone and plop them down into the middle of that and expect them to be successful. So I think which is the long answer to saying, why hasn't anybody else done it? It's trying to find the clinicians who want to work in this pretty unique space that can get trained with all the infrastructure around it is what we've really had to build to be successful.
And Joe, would it be fair to add that a workers' comp incident and claim is something that you're trying to actively have a beginning and an end to? You're going to treat for a very specific episode and moment in time and condition and get people moved along. And Salome, a lot of mental health has a longer ongoing therapeutic relationship over often many years. And maybe Joe, you comment just on the kind of the discrete nature of what you'd want to do in this particular part of mental health.
It's one, being in healthcare, I think as long as the three of us you've seen all these attempts to try to create episodes of care, or whether it's like the ACO or whether it's case rates or surgery rate, all in surgery rates. And workers' comp is actually, that's the whole thing, are these case rates. And it makes it really interesting from just what is the scope of care, because it's really predefined. It starts when they have an injury at work and it ends when they've reached their maximum medical improvement and are back, which changes that whole model. It's not about long-time symptom relief permanently. It's really encompassed in that episode.
The way we came to this investment was right on the tail of AbleTo. And as AbleTo, one of the pioneering things that they actually did is they looked at the intersection of mental health and medical health, physical health. And if you look at what Ascellus is doing, it's doing that exact same model in some ways in the workers' comp population. And they also had that whole notion of very discrete beginning and end. Like, we're going to intervene for this period of time. We're going to use this very specific method. We're going to measure along the way. And you're going to see, underwriter of the risk, are going to see a discrete improvement. And so as you think about what Joe described, that's very much what we saw and we're really attracted to in this market, in this opportunity.
Yeah, super helpful. And for those in our audience who aren't familiar, AbleTo was one of those pioneering companies that did exactly that. It was one of the first to focus on outcomes measure in virtual behavioral health and tying that impact with physical conditions as well as a result of that behavioral health care. So super intriguing.
And just to add one more intriguing bit, Salome, which was really interesting. Not only in the case of workers' comp do you help potentially reduce the cost of the physical treatment and care, But the ability to get somebody back to work limits the exposure of the insurer and gets somebody more productively back into the workforce, which is a win-win. And so that you get a sort of a double ROI or a double benefit by doing great care.
And it's just amazing how you just swap a couple of words around from the AbleTo intent and mission, and it applies so neatly in these workers' comp episodes.
Well, I'm sure we've got a lot of payers' attention saying all of that, those listening in. Joe, can you talk a little bit about outcomes you're seeing and how is success measured differently in this model compared to traditional behavioral health?
Yeah. So one of the things, as I said, that I love about workers' comp is that it's an episode. And that means we get to measure when it starts and we get to measure the progress along the way on symptoms. And then we have a discrete way of measuring when it ends. Our goal is, because of the indemnity payments, because you pay someone when they're out of work, getting them actually back at the job is really important. It's important for them personally. Work gives us social relationships and vocation and drive, and is really an important part actually of recovery, is being in the middle of things. Also, there's a pretty clear financial ROI. And so we measure, one of the most important things we measure is our return to work rate, which is really an interesting breakdown. It is 88% of the time we get someone back to work within 8 to 12 sessions. The other 12% is usually when the claim actually ends in the middle of treatment. We may continue some treatment or it goes to settlement, but it's really being able to track exactly. That's the important event, is when we say a person can go back to work. Other things that we track, another thing that I find really interesting, people have, I think, a misconception that workers' comp is there's a lot of malingering and people not wanting to be at work. It's not really what we find. Much more of what we find is uncertainty. So uncertainty on the part of the claims adjuster. Is this claim, am I legally obligated to take this claim? Uncertainty on the part of the worker. I feel anxiety. I feel depression. I can't sleep at night. Is it work related? It's not actually, either of those folks are not terribly well positioned to make an industrial causation determination. So about 30% of the time we do an assessment and we say, regardless of the symptoms, this is not a workers' comp claim. So you should definitely have them work with EAP or through their commercial insurance. But this isn't a comp related thing. And I think that's particular to this place we are in the legislation, and we have only maybe been dealing with this for 10 years. So people just don't have a long base of knowledge to pull from.
It really sounds like a win-win for all. And Liam, I'd love to turn to you now for the investor's standpoint. Can you share a little bit about what is 406 and what made behavioral health within workers' comp an opportunity worth pursuing for you?
Sure. So 406 Ventures, we're a Boston-based fund. We've been around for about 20 years, and we focus in two broad areas, healthcare being a really important piece, and the other part is tech infrastructure. And so we look for companies on the healthcare side which are delivering care in differentiated and disruptive ways, often using technology as part of the solution, but we're not looking at technology as a solution in and of itself, but really an enabler to deliver great care. One of the areas that we focused on, as you well know, Salome, is behavioral health. It's both an area for, like many of us, a strong personal exposure to the space in the context of my daughter, which made me realize that there's much to do to fix and improve the way mental health is cared or dealt with in the U.S., and also just a tremendous opportunity. And one of the most exciting intersections for that opportunity are in companies that are treating folks that haven't, their primary condition isn't a mental health condition, but they've later in life or somewhere along the way have depression, anxiety, PTSD, and they need to figure out how to engage with this system in an important way. And as I referenced earlier, AbleTo did that for folks with medical conditions where somebody just had a heart attack. They'd never had depression in their entire life, but all of a sudden they feel mortal and they have lots of emotions around that event and they experience depression. And how do you get them into the system in a constructive way? And AbleTo was a pioneer in meeting people where they were by doing it using technology to get closer. And from a payer perspective, connecting the dots that say a depressed patient takes longer to get better. They're less compliant into the future. And so if you can help with the depression, you can actually improve the physical recovery, which will save money and improve outcomes on the physical side. That's the magic of what AbleTo did. So when we saw, and as Joe described so eloquently, what's going on in workers' comp, and that you've got two big things. You've got injured workers who've had a traumatic often experience physically, and they're going through some physical recovery. Depression, anxiety is going to slow that recovery. It's going to take them longer to get back to work. It's going to make that recovery less efficient, which is not good for, and the outcomes worse and slower on one hand. And then you have this emergence of actual mental health claims. A frontline worker during COVID dealing with all that they had to deal with, a lot of PTSD, anxiety, depression came along with it, all related to the work. And so that felt like this magic moment where you could bring a company largely on the framework of what AbleTo had done to the fore, have an evidence-based approach, have a discrete intervention, do it virtually, meeting people really where they were, and doing it in a way that was affordable and so that the payers could live with. And part of that was making sure that it was measured. So to me and to 406, we felt that this was just a really magical time to be able to get involved, and something that we had experienced, had seen it on the medical side, could now help be part of it on the workers' comp side. And then the stars aligned to have Joe come in and join the team. And you heard his background, not your traditional provider-centric mental health. He lived in the space. He is, as you observed, I'm sure, an absolute execution leader. He's passionate about what we're doing. He's built an unbelievably strong team to do it. And really, the technology that we're using and the way that we're improving it and making it efficient, and these days with some good intervention with AI, we're really excited about what possibilities are here.
One of the fun statistics, that going back to the AbleTo comment, there was just a study, and the recovering from injury, there was just a study that came out from Sedgwick that addressing psychosocial risk factors decreases recovery time by 60 to 70%. And Sedgwick they have many wonderful qualities. They're not known for being super progressive on this issue and really getting ahead of it. So them seeing this, you can just observe it in the data. And I think, Liam, to your point just about the improving care and improving financial outcomes, it's such a nice match.
Even more reasons for why the timing was just so great. Liam, I'll just add to your intro. I think you're leaving out that 406 is really one of the most, if not most prolific investor in behavioral health companies. It'd be nice to hear a little bit more about how Ascellus fits in the portfolio of others that you've invested in with a similar playbook, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you for saying that, Solomon. And coming from you, that means everything, because you are the center of the universe, and really we respect what you do and thankful for all that you do for this industry. Yeah. So I think Ascellus fits neatly into what we love to see in companies, which are we talked about a disruptive model of delivery. So using technology to support more, meeting folks where they are, particularly with mental health, which is so important. Also, the evidence-based approach that we come at this with. This is all CBT-based. We've got deep clinical research that shows that it works. And so if you think about AbleTo, which was able to show its efficacy with some early publications, obviously Equip and what they do in the eating disorder treatment space, all evidence-based, clear pharmaceutical grade studies showing that it works. InStride Health, which is a spin out of McLean Hospital for kids with pediatric and severe anxiety in pediatric populations. Our friends at NEMA, which is doing this in PTSD for folks that suffer from physical abuse. It's all evidence-based, clinically proven, delivered in a way to meet people where they are. So Ascellus very much fits that model and mold. And then the measurement along the way to show that we're doing it in a formulaic way and we're seeing results, so that if you're a payer, you feel good about paying for the service. It's not a black box. And so all of our companies fit into that mold. And we think it's one of the formulas to really expand access, which is so important in mental health, and to deliver care that really matters. And most importantly, to get people back to their lives, whether it's their jobs or with their grandkids or their school, in the case of InStride.
I think one of the particularly exciting things about being an executive that's listed in that group is 406 has created an incredible sort of center of excellence, a clearinghouse of knowledge, a set of people who really understand the space, understand the seriousness and the deep connection to mission that each one of these companies has. And I think being able to work with investors that work with companies every day who reflect that seriousness of cause, it is a a particularly productive environment to be in, because I think we at Ascellus benefit directly from all of those peers, but also as a group through having investors that care about it in a way that actually shows up in the way that we are supported by our colleagues.
In fact, we've got quite a few startups in our audience listening in, and Joe, given your background as EIR and entrepreneur, and Liam, such a vast experience as an investor, would love to ask you both a little bit about just that working relationship and any advice you would have around the startup investor relationship. Maybe is there a recent example at Ascellus where perhaps you leverage the 406 expertise and network, or how you work through a problem together?
I'll let you go, Joe.
All right, here we go. I
hold my ears. So you slow.
There's two different flavors to this. One is we were making some important technology decisions. We made several of them along the way, and being able to have an immediate connection to a bunch of people, and not just, I think this person might be working, but literally I was just in a meeting and they are struggling with some of the same questions. They would be a great person to talk to. I've lost count of the number of times on the technology side, but also just the operational design and where do we bring people in that we have had like immediate hands-on technical help, which has been, I think it's just, we're trying to make, when you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to make decisions quickly. You're not trying to noodle on stuff I don't have 3 quarters to make a decision. That's really an important part of accelerating that forward. I think on the sort of more strategic side, having a group of investors who've seen the full story for someone who's trying to do something that we're trying to do is important. Not in the sense that I've seen this, here's exactly what you need to do, but understanding the ups and downs of trying to solve difficult problems quickly at scale, and having somebody that trusts you to work through those things and that you can do hard things, knowing that you've got somebody there to support you, knowing that they have been through it and things that look very similar I think has allowed the whole leadership team, not even just the executive team here, but the whole leadership team to try stuff and try to make a difference, knowing that we have a supportive group of investors who care about what we do and want us to be able to make this company fill its real potential.
Appreciate that. And the partnership has been honestly amazing from the get-go. And Joe's exactly the type of partner that's great. Believe it or not, I actually love getting the calls when something's wrong, not because I want it to be wrong, but it lets you know that you have a real good connection. And then you can say, okay, how are we going to solve this together? And it is just zero mystery that, the wind blows the wrong direction in a small company's lifetime. It could be catastrophic. And you just have to understand that for anybody, and to be available to say, okay, let's figure out how we're going to navigate it, and just to direct candor and honesty. And Joe never pulls any punches. And we've dealt with some incredibly crazy things. We had executives that had, I kid you not, 2 or 3 other jobs that we discovered on the fly. This is apparently a big thing. It's like, okay, how do you navigate that? You can't even make it up. And then we have another situation where we're getting payments on party tells, things I shouldn't say, Joe. So that's out later. But apparently one of our clients can't add an extra 4 digits to a zip code. And so we're trying to get money into an account somewhere, and it's ending up on the floor, and it's insane. And all of a sudden we're in a cash flow crunch. And how do we navigate that together? It's the big, the small, not that I'm going to solve any of those problems, but just hearing about them and saying, okay, what can I bring to bear? And is there a phone call I can make? Is there somebody I know? Can I come down and answer the phone for you, or pick the stuff up off the floor, is whatever it takes. Because that's what you need to do in these companies, because Joe's living that day to day. And every founder that's starting something, that's the name of the game. And it's the life we choose, but it's not magical.
It's totally true. When things are getting exciting, sometimes it's not entirely clear if this is catastrophic or a funny thing that we're going to laugh about later. And it's just nice to not have to hesitate when Liam's getting a call and he's going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly of this situation, and not worried that he's in it for the long term. And that whole team there, Kevin and everybody there, are really in it for trying to get to the mission that we're all trying to pursue.
It's so great. And to your point earlier, Liam, it's like trying to build in the healthcare space, you need that network of experienced people. And it's just so amazing to see that all that Ascellus has accomplished in this amount of time, with the complexities that you outlined, Joe, amazing to see that partnership really pay off in such a meaningful way. And of course, I encourage all of our audience, whether you're a recovering worker or those who are supporting them, definitely look into Ascellus more, because if we only had 6 more hours, we could go into all the many ways they've supported individuals and companies. And so I really appreciate both of you so much for sharing your story. Now, last question is, how can people learn more about each of your work? Joe and then Liam, please.
Great. Yeah, I think my contact information is going to be there. I would love to talk about workers' compensation or challenges that we have in this industry. We're always looking for interesting solutions and ways to accelerate the business. And so would welcome a connection.
Sure. And I would love to hear from anyone who's interested or has overlap with what we do. And I'm the weak member of the team. I've got Pyle DeBakeren and Catherine Taylor-Reddy, Trip Ofer and Rebecca Redfield and Maren Lang. So all of us would love to hear about innovative, cool companies and how we can help improve the way healthcare is delivered in this country and take care of folks, particularly those suffering from mental health, which is still a ton of work to do. We've made some great progress. And Salome, I will reiterate, you have been the center of making innovation happen and convening to do that, which is amazing. But we stand by and ready to think about cool ideas and build great companies. Forward to it.
Thank you both so much. And if you like what you heard, of course, save the date for the Behavioral Health Tech Conference, November 11th through 13th in San Diego this year. And again, thank you both so much. Really exciting work, and I'm happy we could share it today. Thanks for tuning in to Expanding Access. We hope you're feeling inspired by today's discussion. If you've enjoyed the episode, subscribe and share it with your network. For more content and opportunities to get involved in transforming care, visit behavioralhealthtech.com. Until next time, let's keep pushing boundaries and expanding access together.